Okay. All right, guys, just giving you a quick update here. We are at the corner of Texas and Fannin. And we're going to turn around so you can kind of see a little bit of what's going on here. There's kind of a group of police officers here, Houston police, and I believe also some Texas DPS troopers. They're over to the left here. And then I'm not sure if you can even see because of how bright the lights are, but basically across from where that wall of police is on the other side of the intersection, there's a small handful of protesters. They don't seem to really be doing anything, making much noise or anything. At one point, one of the protesters had taken his sign and kind of run it around in a circle through this open intersection here, going directly in front of the police. But from what we've seen in just the maybe 2 minutes that we've been on scene here, no physical confrontations, not even really any, if, maybe just a few words exchanged, if any. But I just checked in with one officer. I just said, are you guys okay? They said everybody's doing okay. We can see some of the mounted patrol off in the distance, but this portion of Fannin at Texas going, let's see, the other end of Fannin, the way that Chris is our photographer, the way that he's shooting right now, straight ahead, that section of Fannin is all blocked off by police officers. And then on this side where we're standing, you can see these Texas DPS troopers. They're also wearing that safety gear, the face shields and the knee pads and so on and so forth. And again, things have been pretty peaceful for the most part. It doesn't seem like there have been any major issues, at least in this particular area. We have heard reports of looting in certain areas. We actually did talk to one store manager here in the downtown area who said his windows were smashed. We saw the broken glass all over the ground. And he said that people came in and stole many of the items in his store. We've heard many reports of similar instances all over this downtown area. But right now it seems the police focus really is making sure that the protesters who are out here on the street are staying safe and keeping them contained to certain areas. We've been hearing the police talk over their radios and possibly also some megaphones, but it's been hard to pick up what they're saying. We've been trying to stay back at a safe distance just for our own safety and also to make sure that the officers can do their jobs and also not get in the way of the protesters. There also are a lot of spectators out here as well. That's one thing we're noticing. But it seems like this area is starting to clear up a little bit. Again, that's just from the protester side of things. They're really kind of just standing in the middle of the intersection here. But again, no real safety issue given the fact that these portions of streets are closed down right now. And just reading the body language, generally speaking, of the police officers here, it seems relatively relaxed. None of them seem like they're in a position to do any type of advance where they would put somebody under arrest or anything like that. Typically, and I can't speak to this situation specifically, but generally what will happen is police will allow protesters to protest up until a certain point, and then they'll issue them sort of a notice that says, okay, at this point, you need to stop protesting or else we need to take you under arrest. And not being a law enforcement expert, I can't tell you the details behind why they do that the way that they do it. I know that a portion of it is to make sure that people are allowed to voice their opinions and kind of act in that civil disobedience, which we have come to, which we expect in our country as a free speech country. But again, it kind of gets to a certain point where police will notify them, if you continue to stay past this certain point, we will have to put you under arrest. We have not heard that here in this situation. And again, it's not to say that it hasn't been said, but we're having a hard time hearing the communications of the police officers to the other protesters. And I'm just going to step out of the frame here for a minute so you guys can see a little bit about what's going on. Okay, so now the police are moving in. And we're going to move a little bit closer as long as it's not unsafe to do so. So it looks like those police officers that you can see, the Houston police officers there in the black, they appear to be walking up Texas, right past this small group of protesters that was here in the middle of the intersection. Now, there are still plenty of other Houston police officers standing where those officers were previously standing. It's unclear where exactly they're going, but just a few moments ago when we were live on television, KHOU 11 News at 10 o'clock, we were up at the corner of Prairie and Fannin. We had been following some officers there, just kind of walking alongside them as they walked through the sidewalks and made their way up that way. When we arrived at that scene with them, when we were walking to the corner of Prairie and Fannin, at that moment it did seem a little hectic, maybe a little frantic, that officers were trying to apprehend, or not apprehend, that's the wrong word, excuse me. They were trying to contain the scene is what it appeared to be. They weren't putting anybody under arrest at that time. They just seemed to be looking at a couple specific people, but again, no action really was taken other than just kind of providing a human barrier with the mounted police, the Texas DPS, and those Houston police officers. Now, Chris, just be careful here because this cruiser is going to be coming through. Sorry, we're live on Facebook right now, okay? Just 1 second. Okay. So anyway, just kind of bringing you back to understanding kind of the situation here. These protests have been going on now for, almost 9 hours. We have seen some incidents of looting and some damage to local businesses. That's one thing that Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner said he did not want to see earlier today in a news conference. He understands the great sense of anger and rage and frustration by people about what happened with George Floyd, a 3rd Ward of Houston native who died in police custody in Minneapolis a couple of days ago. And he understands the sentiment of these people who are out here to protest, but his biggest concern was just making sure that people stay calm, peacefully protest, and generally speaking, that's been the case. We've heard some reports of about 12 arrests. We're still working to confirm those numbers. We also have heard some reports that some officers have been injured. We don't know the extent of their injuries. We're still waiting on Houston police to confirm any of the details that have been coming into our newsroom. But in order to be responsible, we don't want to tell you something that hasn't been confirmed by an authority or somebody who's very close to the situation who can provide us a reliable source. So you can understand why this situation is a little bit tough for us to provide a lot of specific details on, just because things are moving so quickly and we're kind of only in one area here on the ground. So we're getting reports into our newsroom. Our managers will relay those to us when we can get something confirmed, but we've just been trying to stay back, stay safe, but also make sure that you guys have some eyes on the situation to understand what exactly is going on here in downtown. And again, if you're just joining us, all of this is because of protests regarding George Floyd. He's a Houston native, grew up in the 3rd Ward, and actually one of my assignment today was to speak to some Houstonians that you're probably familiar with. If you know Trey the Truth, he's a Houston rapper and community activist. He does a lot for the community with Trey Day in terms of giving back to kids. And he says that he and George Floyd were very good friends, that George would actually come to Trey Day. He would help out with the community activities that Trey would put together. So Trey was in Minneapolis. He flew there today to be part of a rally there. Also there, Bun B, which I'm sure you're familiar with. He's another rapper from this area. He's originally from Port Arthur. And another Port Arthur, Texas native, Steven Jackson. He's a former NBA player. Was very vocal during a news conference and press conference out there in Minneapolis earlier today. And so what you're seeing here in Houston is a reflection of the feeling and the sentiment by the people here who are sad, frustrated, angry, upset. You can imagine the range of emotions when they're hearing that another person, a person of color, has been killed either in police custody or when they were not a threat, or at least didn't appear to be a threat. There are more reports about how exactly the entire situation went down on our website. khou11.com. So if you have questions about the details of what happened and what the prosecutors are saying about this case, you can go on our website and read that. For now, we're just going to take a small break. We're just going to kind of let you guys see what's going on around here. And our managers are going to let us know if they're going to wrap it up on our digital platforms for now. But just to give you one last picture here, we're at corner of Fannin and Texas. And I'm Chris Costa for KHOU 11 News in downtown Houston. Can you put it to manual?
Shit. Just there.
Thank you. There we go. You want to walk up to like halfway up towards that where they are? Okay. Okay. It seems like it. Can't go past this. They're holding it? Okay. Yep, thank you guys. Y'all safe? Staying safe? Good.
That one there, move. You need to go there. Hey guys, the one in the corner.
What's up?
Give me one back here.
You want to walk up instead? Okay. I mean, I feel okay. Do you feel okay? I mean, this is pretty calm. Right? Like earlier. No, yeah. Yeah, before it was a little hectic. Oh, now he's gonna turn around. Where are they going? Okay. You good with that? I don't mind. Okay. You want to go back that way?
No. Just for reference, so you know.
Sure. Seems like they're kind of just standing around.
You're in traffic. So if you have a mobile vehicle, I would get in there, especially if he's already tied up people. The jail vans are full and tied up. HPD 3 and number 5. HPD 3 and number 5.
Is one tight shirt.
Square town.
Expecting a letter.
What's up? Yeah. I went down because do you guys have you got zebras on? Yeah, you do. Okay. They are letting traffic through here.
You a news reporter?
Yes, sir. We work together as a team.
What channel?
Channel 11.
All right. So I'm a United States Air Force veteran. And I just wanted to talk to y'all for a little bit, just to let y'all talk about the situation.
Thanks.
Maybe I'll give y'all a story or whatever if y'all need. Like real shit.
We can't do anything live, right?
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. I mean, if y'all play it back or something, you know what I'm saying? Maybe,
You got a cell phone?
Yeah, I got one.
Take my number.
All right. We probably do it later. Okay, that's what you're saying. I see. Okay.
Right now we happen to be live right now, so we can't do it.
Oh, right. Okay. What is it?
832.
All right.
654.
All right.
4759.
4759. Okay.
And it's Chris.
All right. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Chris. Hey, I'm glad I met you.
Likewise. What's your name?
My name is Don Alonso Miguel Lindsay. What's your zodiac sign?
My zodiac sign. It's an Aries.
You Aries? Oh, you Aries? I'm a Scorpio. That's live. Okay, cool.
Are we compatible?
Yeah, man.
I won't tell my wife. I was kidding.
It just something like that.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
We're the type that are really out here. That's the reason why you out here is the same.
Why don't we go back towards the Verizon store?
At a Verizon store?
Or just up a block? I don't know. Whatever you want. Whatever you think is the best.
No, is that the way we came from?
That's
we came from there. Yeah. So let's go this way. All right, now it's good to see you, brother. Take care of yourself. All right. Huh?
Who's he?
Telemundo. I know. For Univision.
Okay.
Stay safe, sir. So I think if we cut up Capitol, we'll run into the car. So the Verizon store is after the park, after the P. So we either up this street or the next one. Yeah, see it's right after the P.
Oh, okay.
Gentlemen. Plug in. I'm a spin. Yeah. No, we good. As long as I'm tight. Yeah, I'm tight. Yep. Go out to the next corner. Remember, that Verizon, next to the Verizon store, got that profanity on the wall.
Yes, correct. Okay. All right. If you are watching us on Facebook right now, oh, sorry.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. Hey guys, all right, if you are watching us on Facebook right now on our KHOU 11 Facebook page, my name is Chris Costa, and we are in downtown Houston, and what we've seen in the past maybe 45 minutes, maybe a little bit more, closer to an hour, has been sort of this dispersing of the protesters from downtown as the police are kind of, sorry, hold on, we're going to get past this little crowd here. Yep. So anyway, so now we just picked that right back up. Sorry, you weren't going to be able to hear me over the crowd noise anyway. Okay, so yeah, so we're down here right now. Let's see. We're
Go to the left. Can we go to the left?
Can we go left, sir? All right, cool. Thank you guys. Stay safe. Okay, so over the past 45 minutes or so, we've seen sort of this sort of dispersing of the protesters, as well as police officers have kind of been rearranging over to different corners of different intersections. As we mentioned before, kind of if you're just reading their body language, you can see some of them have taken off those helmets that have the face shields. A lot of them have lifted their face shields up. A lot of them are standing with their shields down. So if I'm judging their body language correctly, I'd say that the sort of energy here has decreased. It's not as tense as it probably was closer to a couple hours ago. These protests have been going on for close to like 9 hours. So it's been a long day and a long night for these police officers. Chris, do you want to stay here, or do you want to keep walking that way? It's up to you.
No, I mean, let's stay here.
Yeah, we'll stay here. And so basically it's been going on for the past 8 or 9 hours. Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner had asked people earlier this evening to please just keep things calm, keep things peaceful. Unfortunately, that didn't really happen. There were some instances. Okay. I'm just going to grab this cord.
Yes, sir.
There were some incidences of looting. We encountered one store manager at a Verizon store on Main Street who he had the windows of his business had been smashed in. He said that a lot of his items were stolen. And we had seen a lot of damage to a lot of the businesses along that same strip here downtown Houston. And so, again, this is kind of going against what Mayor Turner had called for earlier this evening during that news conference. He had really asked people to keep those protests peaceful in order to make sure that the name of George Floyd, the reason that all of these people are out here protesting, it does not get tarnished or muddied by people looting or rioting or anything like that. And actually, Chris, our photographer, found a good example of some of this damage right here at 811 Main. A shattered window, and you can kind of see this glass all over the ground. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but this has been the case for several businesses all over the city. Windows smashed, several of these skywalks that connect some of these buildings. We had a gentleman earlier who was showing us video of people throwing rocks at those. And you can see here again, this actually has double layered glass, but then this layer right here is broken. I'm not going to touch that. But you can imagine, a lot of these business owners had hoped that people would follow Sylvester Turner's instructions to just keep things calm and peaceful. Unfortunately, that was not the case. And now a lot of people are going to have to clean up the mess, and hopefully with the help of some police officers, maybe looking at some surveillance video to see if they can figure out who's been responsible for all this. We're actually coming back up on that Verizon store that we were talking to you about a moment ago. You want to keep walking closer? We're going to pause here for a second because as we're sitting here on Main Street at the corner of Walker and Main, we're seeing, a small group of police officers. If I had to estimate, it's probably somewhere around 20 to 30, maybe 25, walking down Main Street. They are not, some of them are not wearing their helmets or holding their shields up. Again, you can only really read their body language, but it seems to be relatively relaxed. And we've seen this more and more as these protesters have kind of dispersed, as the police have kind of rearranged to different blocks. And we're coming up on another intersection here where police have kind of strategically just they've cordoned off all of these with their bodies.
Looks like it's another intersection there where they got it coordinated off.
Okay. So we're gonna walk up there. You got music playing? Do you hear that? Is that your phone?
It might be.
Okay. Oh, feet. Here, stand still. 1 second, I'll help you out. There you go. Yep. Yeah. Didn't want you tripping over that. Sorry, guys. I apologize that we keep getting distracted here. I know that it's probably a little bit tough for you guys as viewers, but just understand that we're kind of following we would call it a fluid situation. We're moving around a lot, trying to figure out what's happening where. Trying to get as much information as we can. We had heard some reports of about 12 arrests. We're still trying to get the final numbers on that for sure. We'd also heard some reports of some officers being injured. We don't know at this time, how severe their injuries are. But there was one gentleman that we spoke to as we kind of came up on this area, and actually, there's more broken glass here outside this CVS, right here on Main Street. It's actually directly across from the Verizon where we did our live shot earlier this evening. So I don't know if you guys can tell, but the window over there at the Verizon's totally smashed, wide open. And then over here, right across the street, this CVS, more broken glass on the ground. So we're gonna take a look at what's going on behind us just because there are some Houston Police Mounted Patrol, and there seem to be a good amount of officers hanging out at this section, the intersection of McKinney and Main. So yeah. But it has been a long day for these protesters, for these officers who are out here trying to keep everybody safe, and we've been generally trying to keep a safe distance just to let police do their job, let protesters do their protesting. And just kind of keep ourselves safe and stay out of the way and just kind of observe and let you guys see what's going on. One thing I'll tell you, I thought that was kind of interesting earlier today. I was talking to Trey the Truth. If you guys are familiar, he's a famous rapper from the Houston area. He says he was good friends with George Floyd, said that George would come to a lot of Trey's community activist activities such as Trey Day. He'd come out and help out with handing out supplies for kids and so on and so forth. Trey actually flew to Minneapolis today to take part in a rally with Bun B, another Houston rapper you're probably familiar with. Steven Jackson is from Port Arthur. He's a former NBA player. And they were all there to not only hold a rally, but also hold a news conference and share their frustrations about the loss of their friend, George Floyd, who is a Third Ward native here in Houston. And to share their frustration with, you know, the way that he died or the circumstances under which he died. And if you guys want to read more about exactly what happened, you can go to our website, khou11.com, where the charging document for the officer, Derek Chauvin from the Minneapolis Police Department, I don't want to speak incorrectly, but I know there were charges of murder and possibly manslaughter for him. And the charging document does explain a little bit more of what those attorneys found were the circumstances of George Floyd's death. I know that Trey had actually called on a lot of people to write to the governor of Minnesota and say, hey, we don't want the district attorney in Minneapolis covering or handling this case because he's worried about the possibility of a conflict of interest between the district attorney and the police officers that they're working with on a regular basis. He would ask that people had write to the governor and ask that the attorney general would step in and cover this case instead. So as we kind of mentioned, I talked to Trey earlier today. Obviously, he's very sad about the loss of his friend. He actually went to the site where George died. He sent me some pretty emotional photos of that moment and looking at the mural that's been put up in that area in George's honor. And guys, you're looking at this scene right now. Again, we're at the corner of McKinney and Main. And as I said, we had seen some instances of some damage, heard some reports of looting from the manager across the street here. These officers are kind of, we have some mounted patrol officers and many other Houston police officers who, at this point, and again, I'm just kind of reading their body language, seem to be kind of relaxed. It's not the scene that we saw earlier in our newscast around Prairie and Fannin, where there definitely was a heightened sense of urgency from the police officers. So we're going to get out of the way here a little bit as these guys go through. But we're going to wrap things up here for you guys. We'll just kind of leave you with this shot of the officers riding through as they most likely move on to another location. We've seen this kind of happening throughout the night. There's these small groups of officers, kind of strategically moving from one intersection to the next intersection and so on and so forth. In addition to some of the damage, we've also seen some graffiti, some of it profane, but this is a lot of cleanup that these small business owners and large business owners will have to do in the coming days. And I know that some people that we had spoken to had hoped that perhaps these protests would not continue into tomorrow, as we'd seen in Minneapolis. As I said, things seem to be sort of calming down here. So we're going to wrap up our coverage here on KHOU 11's Facebook page. And any more developments that kind of come out of this, we're going to bring them to you as soon as we get them on our social media channels, as well as our website, khou11.com. Make sure you're following us on social media so you can get those up-to-the-minute updates, as well as our mobile app, where you can get push alerts to notify you of all the things going on in Houston, whether it's related to George Floyd or the weather or anything else that you might be interested in going on in your community. And it also gives you the opportunity to watch some of these digital coverages that we do that are kind of the bonus after the TV newscast is over. So we're going to wrap things up from here from downtown Houston. I'm Chris Costa, KHOU 11 News. Did you get the clear?